Hey, welcome back to True-Moto-Resto, and in today's video we're going to do some carburetor cleaning and rebuild. Purely an academic exercise. These carbs are not going back on any kind of bike, but I do have an old set of Mikuni flat slides here that came off the GSXR750 project, and never touched flat slides before, so I do have a rebuild kit because I bought that for the GSXR but never ended up using those carbs or the engine. So today's video is going to be learning a little bit about what makes them tick, how they work, and we'll give them a kind of a rudimentary cleaning. And they're not going to be a showpiece, that's for sure, because there's still a lot of parts that have to be replaced that I don't have. But stay tuned, we'll take them apart, see how they tick, and do the best we can to rebuild them without any new hoses and whatnot. So stay tuned. So these are a set of Mikuni flat slide carburetors off a 1980 something GSXR750. So these came off my 86 GSXR, but the engine that they were installed on was an 88-89 slingshot engine, so I cannot honestly tell you whether these are 86 carburetors or whether they're 88-89 carburetors. But anyway, they are Mikuni flat slides. And the condition of them now, they look a whole lot better than they did when I first got the bike a year and a half ago. These were kind of white and furry. The bike had sat outside for 15 years in a field behind somebody's house or something. It was outside. There was grass growing in it and it was a mess. But these were all white, furry. Everything was seized up and probably still is. Like, I know for sure the choke barely moves. But I just, for a good 6 months, I would spray these things with WD-40, which kind of got rid of the white furriness off it. My hope was to start to loosen everything up. But we will see today how successful I've been to see if these things will come apart. I'm not sure how successful I will be getting it apart, but we'll see. I did buy carburetor kits for these. Now, the quality, I'm not actually going to use these on anything anymore because, as you know, the 86 spit it out. The 86 GSXR was restored as a 1200 Bandit, Skull Bandit. So it's got the carbs on it off the Bandit, and so these are kind of spares, if you like. I bought these from Cruise and Image in Japan. So here's what's in the kit. There's a gasket for the top cap, which I believe that's what that is. There's a gasket for the float bowl, needle and seat with the filter on it. There's a bunch of jets. And what else? We got some springs, some E-clips, and some, looks like a mixture screw. So yeah, some of the stuff I will use, some of it. There's a needle there, O-ring, whatnot. I'll use some of it, motion tube, but don't know if I'll use it. But what I will do though, before I decide to use these, is I've got a pin gauge set which allows you to kind of measure the inside diameter of the various jets and whatnot. Here's the setup I use. I like to keep all the parts for the carburetors separate and distinct. So carburetor 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then a couple of other bins just for kind of common components, like say the choke actuating rod, or these bars that hold the rack together. All that kind of stuff can go in these common bins. Okay, a couple of must-use things. JIS screwdrivers. Gotta have a set of JIS screwdrivers when you're working on, any sort of Japanese bikes and carburetors and whatnot. These are not Phillips heads, not Phillips. They are JIS, Japanese Industrial Standard, and the depth and the taper on a JIS screwdriver is different to a Phillips. If you use a Phillips screwdriver on these screws, there's a high likelihood that they will strip the head out. They'll want to cam out because they don't sit properly in the head of the screw. So yeah, get yourself a set of GIS screwdrivers. And then the other thing that's quite handy, this is just somebody gave me this stuff. I do have a new tin of it, but valve grinding paste. When you've got a set of carbs like this where these screws have been in here forever and they've been left outside and there's a lot of corrosion, sometimes dipping the tip of the screwdriver in the ground in the valve grinding paste and then setting it in there, it will give you much more bite and more likely to be able to get the screw out. The other thing that I do tend to use for this sort of stuff is if I'm worried about stripping out a head, I'll use an impact driver. The kind you put in and you smack it with a hammer. So there you go. So Bubba has already been into this one with probably a Phillips screwdriver. See how that head there is completely butchered? That's what happens when you use a Phillips screwdriver instead of a GIS screwdriver. Yeah, these screws are seized in there pretty good. It seems that my impact driver is now, did you see that? I can't get it in there. It's too shallow. Do it this way. These screwdrivers do have solid top on them for allowing this sort of barbaric caveman type approach. But that's it. Got it. All right, so you're going to see this for the first time live, or at least the same time as me. The other thing I forgot to do here, and I normally do this and forgot, so I'll say it even though I haven't done it. I normally like to clean at the outside of the carburetor bodies and the mechanisms with brake clean and a toothbrush and whatever to get as much of the crap off them as possible before I start cracking them open, because I just think that, these kinds of scenarios, cleanliness, it starts with cleaning the outside of the carbs, and the more clean the outside of the carbs are, the less chance of that crap getting inside, kind of thing, if you understand what I'm trying to say to you. So anyway, here we go. Let's see what is in here. Yeah, not good. Not very good at all, especially number 3. Yikes. Okay, there we are. Number 3 looks a little crusty, but it's probably not the worst that we've ever seen. Yeah, that one is quite nasty. Definitely been some water in there, I would suggest. Number 4 is kind of gummed up. And look inside the float bowls there. So it's pretty obvious, I think, that there's been water in that one, and then 1 and 4 have got just kind of, it looks like a varnish buildup. Number 2 is just yeah, it's probably the best of all of them, to be honest with you. There's no gum in it, and it's not really too rusty in there. But so here's something I've never encountered before. I have to do some research. I have no idea what this is. A little spring and a plunger in there. I don't know if it's like some sort of power jet or accelerator pump or what that is. Gotta do a bit of research on that. Interesting. All right, I'm just going to move the top racking bar off the airbox side, because I cannot get the pins out for the floats. So I think what I'm going to have to do is take the carburetors individually. What just happened to that screw? There it is. I have to take the carburetors individually and support these little, I'm digressing here, but anyway, so these posts that hold the pin for the floats, the pins are all stuck. So if I start whacking on the back of that pin right there, it's just going to shear these mounting tabs off. So the only way to reasonably try to get those out is to, I think, try to give them some proper support of each carburetor individually and try tapping them out. All right, so I've got the choke rod coming apart. So these guys kind of go this way. These are what holds the choke plunger, and they kind of slide on the shaft like so. So as I pull this rod out, these things are all going to drop off one by one. So that's the position of them, just so I remember. Okay, so I'm just going to pass along a bit of a learning experience here. I didn't know about this before I disassembled these, but now I do. So there's a couple of tiny springs and a couple of little check balls there. Not really check balls, but they're like a ball bearing type of deal. And they actually are part and parcel of the choke rod, choke shaft assembly. And on carburetor number 1 and carburetor number 3, you see right here, there's a hole. And that's where this is where the choke shaft goes in, right there, like that. And the idea behind these is they're like, it's like a detent. So when you pull the choke out, the spring and the ball kind of engage with, maybe it's probably somewhere along here, there's like a detent or whatever that kind of allows the choke rod to stay out. And when you remove this rod, these balls will come out very easily. The springs come out easily, but not as easily as the little balls. And I discovered this completely by accident. I had I found one of these little ball bearings on my bench, and I kind of went, oh shit, where's that from? So I did a bit of research online and finally figured it out. The springs were still in there, thankfully. So yeah, if you take this stuff apart, as you pull this choke shaft out, be very careful because super easy to lose. I was one of them I found on the workbench here. One was kind of underneath here somewhere, but I was lucky, super lucky to find them again. So yeah, just be very attentive when you remove this from the VM29 carb set, because it's easy to lose that stuff. All right, so we're all learning together here. I've taken the top caps off because it was clear that these carburetors were not coming apart until this throttle shaft here, this shaft that runs across all 4 carbs, that controls, as you can see, there's like a mechanical lever cam sort of assembly in there that lifts the flat slides up and down. And it looks like there's either a screw or a bolt, or screws in these cases, that are locking these lift cams onto that shaft. So I'm guessing that they have to come out. These screws have got to come out, and then I should be able to start sliding these carburetors off the shaft. That's what I'm guessing. This is the first time I've ever done a set of these, so yeah, that's exactly what I did. So that screw kind of goes right into that hole there. So as soon as you take that out, you can slide the cam right off the throttle shaft, and then this whole assembly just lifts right out. And I think I noticed that there was actually no sync screws on this. So I'm thinking that what actually happens is, if you take a look at this, it looks a whole lot like a Honda type of valve tappet adjustment. So you undo that locking nut, and then you can move this screw. And maybe that's how you synchronize these. I'm just guessing. I've never seen these before. Maybe that's how you synchronize a set of flat slides. All right, so getting these carbs separated, not too bad. The two end ones, number 1 and number 4, once you take the screw out of the slide lift cam, I'm just calling it that, I'm not sure that's what it's called, but anyway, once you take that out, you can basically slide this apart. There's a spring that goes on this side here. You could basically wind it 1 full revolution to reload it later. But once you get to the carbs 2 and 3, they're a little trickier, because these you can't get carburetor 2 off unless I'm pretty sure there's a roll pin right where my thumb is. You can see it there. So I'm gonna have to drive that roll pin out and make sure I've got the you can see the orientation of that. So this is where the spring hooks onto. So I've got to just make sure that that goes back in the like the 7 or 8 o'clock position when it goes back on. And then similarly with this, I probably don't have to take this one off because the whole assembly should slide out from the right side of carburetor number 3, I think. So let's see if I can get that roll pin out, and then that should have all of the carbs separated. All right, so I got the roll pin out. So now basically I'm tapping the rod out of here. It will have to go, once I get that off, that'll be able to be extracted, and I'll probably be able to pull the rod straight out of this side as well, and then just leave the rest of this assembly on that side. Alright, so this throttle shaft is now out, and now I can separate all of these carburetors. So next task is basically removing the pins. So I got this one out, the float assembly pin has been removed from here, and the way I've done that is I've just kind of set up against my vise. So I'll turn around while I do the next one, and then you can witness this as it works, or if it all ends in tears, you shall see. Care to get this carburetor in the right place, and then hold the punch. There we go, she's out. There goes the pin, it's out. So the next job is just removing the needles and seats. The needles are out, the seats are held in. There's a set screw or a clamping screw that holds the seats in place, and they're all pretty well stuck and rusted, so I'm resorting to the slightly caveman method of getting these out, because otherwise they will strip. By this guy. This one came out fine. Alright, so since I buggered up that screw, I just put this, put my soft jaws in the vise, and I'm going to see if I can use my left-handed drill bit here to extract this thing. Alright, so there it is on the end of the left-handed drill bit. Came out. So that's good. Now the only thing I gotta do is find a new screw. Alright, so time to remove the jets. So the pilot's got these little tubes around them for some reason. Again, there's a lot of stuff in here I haven't really seen it. This is my first set of flat slides that I've disassembled. So and let's see how far in these screws are. These fuel screws. Half, one's in 1 1/4. The other one's in 1 1/2. So it's important to, with any fuel screws that you're removing, to know that in addition to the screw itself and the needle that's on the end of it, there's also a spring in there, there's a washer in there, and there's an O-ring in there, all of which you need to remove. Pretty well flattened. So there's actually this one, everything came out in one. Alright, so all the jets are out, so now I'm just going to remove the choke assemblies. Alright, so just the first stage of cleaning these things is just getting the carb cleaner into anywhere and everywhere. So here's another thing that I'm still learning about. These screws in the engine side of the carburetor body, screws right in there. No idea what that does. Alright, so I think they're pretty much fully disassembled now. Didn't take that throttle adjusting screw out of there, but that's no big deal. All the jets are out, the emulsion tubes are removed, and the other thing I've done is I've kind of chased all of the holes, and I've been shooting carb cleaner through any of these orifices just to make sure that they come out in the right places. So, and then if they've not, I've been chasing them with a carb cleaning tool. Similarly with the powered jets here, the accelerated pump jets, making sure that they are clear, which they are. And yeah, just it's just a case now of continuing to soak these for a little while in carb cleaner, and then they're going to go into the ultrasonic cleaner for good measure. All right, so I'm going to try to get this plunger out of here. It's still stuck in, so the only way that I can think of doing it is blocking off these two fuel lines here and shooting some compressed air into that hole. So I've got this kind of rubber tip on my air gun. So what I had to do is I took a pair of these are cheap needle nose pliers, tiny little guys, and I notched the end. You can see there. Made them even smaller so I could get inside here. And the whole idea is I'm trying to grab the end of this little protrusion on the top of the plunger, but it's as solid as a rock. All right, I'm getting close to getting it out. I used my little butane torch, heated the living bejeebus out of it, and then kept soaking it in penetrating oil, and now you can see it actually moves. There she is. Sure it's not hot. Got it. All right, so the next step is the ultrasonic cleaner. I've got all the carburetors in here and the float bowls are in here. It's a 15-liter cleaner, so it takes 4 carburetors, no problem. I use hot water right away just because it saves a bit of heating time. And then the chemicals are the products I use. Some people keep all kinds of things secret when they've got something that works, but I don't particularly care about secret stuff. This is what I use. Industrial 297 Super Solve Concentrate. And I get this from a place in Mississauga. You can see it right there. Bob Chambers Limited. And this is it's a heavy duty industrial cleaner is what it is. And I've used this for many years in my ultrasonic cleaner. I don't have any special way to measure this stuff out. I just pour it in until the color of the water looks pretty. And that's that. And then just for good measure, lavender pine sol. Lavender because I like the smell. Chills me out, keeps me calm. And it makes the place smell wonderful when it's done. So that's the stuff that I put in there. As soon as I turn this on, it's going to make all kinds of nasty noises on the camera, on the phone. So once it starts up, I'm just going to stop recording, and then we'll get back at it. You'll see more once everything has been cleaned. So I'm going to do. I'm going to put it up to like 65 degrees or 70 degrees or something like that. And then I'm going to do it for 25 minutes. We'll see how they look. 26 minutes, good enough. There we go. Okay, so I don't know if you can hear me while the ultrasonic cleaner is going, but we're going to try this anyway. I'm just in the process now of cleaning all the jets. I've got a jet cleaning tool here, cleaning all the holes in the motion tubes, and I've got these. They've been soaking in carb cleaner for a while, but now I've got them soaking in some vinegar. My goal is to try to just get, not that it matters, but to get the jets a bit more shiny clean. I've never tried vinegar before. I don't know if it works or not, so we're going to give it a shot now. All right, it's been 25 minutes. Let's see what they look like. Maybe we need to give them a little bit more time. I did scrub them ahead of time with toothbrush and kerosene. It is warm. Let's see them there or not. Yeah, I think I'm going to give these a little longer. I mean, they're coming clean for sure, but yeah, more time. I've had limited success on getting things sort of as shiny as they are when they're new, but not too bad. If you have any special recipes, let me know. I've heard toilet cleaner works well, but the contents of the it's too hot to even put my fingers in there right now to pull them out, so I'm just going to let them soak in there a little longer, and then I'll pull them out. It's nice having the large ultrasonic cleaner. They're if it's set 4 carbs in there, no problem. And I'll say this again. I've heard all kinds of people say, well, that ultrasonic cleaner is a piece of crap. It's a Chinese cleaner. Yes, it is a Vivor ultrasonic digital cleaner. But I've used it a lot. I've had it for probably close to 8 years, 10 years. I can't remember now. A long time. And I've done a lot of carburetors in it, as well as brake calipers and other stuff, and I like it. I like it a lot. It seems to work well, and the only thing I've heard about them being a little bit dodgy is the on-off switch at the back can go. So my solution to that is I don't touch it. I just basically plug it in, leave it turned on, plug it in, and I've got a switch on there if I need to use it. So don't worry, it's just the ultrasonic cleaner getting drained. One of my golden rules is always start with a spotless cleaner. Then if you find any bits in the bottom, you know exactly which set of carbs they came from. So once I've done my cleaning, I always drain the cleaner, and I always clean everything out on the inside so it's spotless for the next time. So what I'm doing now is wire brushing these things. So you can see how there's like a lot of the corrosion that was there, the kind of the white furry stuff that I had sprayed, WD-40 and penetrants of all sorts all over. Now that all those penetrants have been kind of boiled away in the ultrasonic cleaner, there's still all kinds of stuff there that needs to be cleaned off. So the best way to do that is a brass brush and then a steel brush, and that'll bring the finish back up, and then I'll probably stick them back in the ultrasonic cleaner for a second time. Okay, so while the carbs are back in the ultrasonic cleaner for a final time, I thought I'd pull out the pin gauge set. And basically what I've done is I've taken all of the jets and the emulsion tube and all that kind of stuff, and I've just checked the sizes, the internal diameters of the orifices of all of these compared to the ones that came in the cruise and image set. I also checked with the calipers the size and shape of the needles, the diameter at different places. So what I found is the needles are identical, the main jets are identical, the pilot jets that came in the kit, although they're stamped with the same number as the originals, are slightly smaller diameter. So I'm going to stay with the original these. And the emulsion tubes are very close, although the new ones are like one size smaller, very, very, very small. So it could be, these being older carburetors, that these could be worn. So when replacing the needles in these flat slides, there's two Allen bolts, little Allen bolts. Basically, they are one down in here and one down in here. So you just basically take those out, and then just when you pull this out, just remember which way around it goes. It comes out like that. There's the two little bolts, and then the needle will just lift right out. Starting to put in the new drain screws. All right, let's try the new emulsion tubes. Make sure we drop them in the right way around. There is a slot in these things to. So there we go. All the new emulsion tubes are in. Now I'm just going to put these caps back on. So next is these plugs that go into the sink ports on the side. I just cleaned up the threads with a wire brush. These were kind of super rusty, but all right. So next is going to be the fuel screws. I am using the new ones. So basically the order is, getting the shot here, the screw with the spring, with the washer, with the O-ring. And that goes right in there. I'm going to fully seat that, and then we're going to back it out 1.5, which is what most of them were. And when you fully seat it, you don't want to crank it down, you just want to lightly seat it right there. It's a half, it's 1.5. All right, next is the pilots going back in, and as I said, I'm putting the original pilots back in for two reasons. The inside diameter of these is slightly larger, and then the flute holes in here, see there, those were also slightly larger than the replacement. So I have elected to go with the originals. All right, next is the needles and seat. So what I like to do, just a very light smear of rubber grease on this O-ring just to make seating a bit easier. So in the seat, it's got the, as you see there, it's got the filter on it. Put these little set screws in. These just hold the seat in place, stops it from popping out. floats next. I'm just putting a little bit of grease on the shaft here. There is actually, I don't know if you can see it in here. I just put the spring back on here, but inside there's actually a bearing. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my some Q-tips, and I'm going to just put a little bit of grease on that roller bearing in there. Let's see, move adjust this camera so you can see the fiddling and faffing that I'm doing here. So I've got the spring hooked onto, which I had the spring hooked on. So I've got to hold this accelerator pump lever out of the way while I load this thing. So you can see what I'm trying to do here. This little brass colored pin here has to ride on this accelerator pump lever, so that when you move the throttle like that, there we go. I think that's got it. So I think there, if you see there now. Like this. Okay, idiot that I am, I have just realized that I can't put that throttle shaft in there yet because the slide has to go in first. There. Helps if you put it in the right way around. Okay. Alright, so just to recap, for some reason I lost a video clip there. It wasn't recording like I thought. So basically what I did to get to this stage was I inserted this throttle rod into carburetor number 3, and then of course you have to have the slide mechanisms in place. I bolted this slide cam onto the rod so it can't back out, because you've got to preload that spring. And then as you see, when you move the spring, it does move that little nylon cam there, which is part of what it pushes the rod for the accelerator pump that'll go in here later. And then it's I put the next one on, which is number 2. Put the set screw in there as well, and then now I've got this other cam that has to go in here. This one is the one that activates the spring and the throttle assembly for carburetor number 1, but there's a roll pin that has to get pressed into there to keep that in place. So I'll do that next. Presumably there, yep, my box of parts there. That's the roll pin that has to go in there. And the orientation of this, when the throttle is at the rest position, is this this spring hook here, this protrusion is kind of at the 7 or 8 o'clock position. So I've just been using these pliers just to squeeze that through. There we go. Next is the spring on carburetor number 1. So that basically hooks over this bottom protrusion here. There's a larger hook and a smaller hook. Larger one on the inside. Move that lever down, and that fits on there just like that. Slide assembly in place. And this might be, again, a little tricky, because basically the steps are this shaft here has to go in through this spring, through the cam for the slide, and then at the same time you have to hold this down, and then you've also got to preload this spring. Not sure how I'm going to do that yet. Alright, so I'm going to try to do it this way. I've got the shaft kind of loosely inserted, and I'm going to try to pre-tension this spring there and get it onto that cam. Now I've got to hold that throttle accelerator pump lever down while I maneuver this thing into place. There we go. Okay, last but not least, number 4. There we go. So there now we have all the carbs. All the slides are moving properly. Everything is smooth and everything is properly tensioned, which is good news. Okay, so one thing I do have to take a look at is the float heights on these. So if you look at this carburetor number 4 here, the floats are kind of approximately level with the float ball, approximately. Carburetor number 1, and not even close to being level with the bottom of the float ball, nor is 2. I forgot to put the choke assemblies in here. Now I gotta just hope to goodness that I can get them in. Well, I've got the carburetors all racked up here because I came out when the carbs were all separated. Yeah, make sure you put those choke assemblies back in before you start joining the carburetors back together. Got them in, but it was pretty tight here on the 4th one. Next is top caps with new gaskets. I think I'm just going to take some Scotch-Brite and just clean the surfaces of here a little bit, just to make sure there's no Alright, so this next step is going to be tricky, I'm imagining. I don't know how it's going to work. Never done it before. So these are the tiny little check balls and springs, detent balls, or whatever you want to call them, that hold this. This is the rod for the choke assembly, and when you pull it out, you kind of want it to stay there until you push it back in, right? That's kind of the way that works. And so there's a little detent kind of set up in there that allows you to so what you have to do is these tiny little springs, and carburetors 1 and 3, like I showed you before, you have to put those springs in like that. Now what I don't know how to deal with yet is how to get these little balls in, so I'm going to just pop that in, put my finger over the one end so it can't fall out. Alright, so the method that I used was basically to hold the ball from coming out the other side with this punch, and there's a tapered end on the shaft with the choke, so if you hold the ball and you push on it, it'll detent the ball down, and you can then move the rod through. So that's what I did. I'll do that on the next one as well when I get there. So the bring it around here so you can see. So inside there, if you can see in there or not, right there, you can just see the ball bearing in there, in that hole. It's in there. And then I've just got the choke rod started. So now I'm gonna basically hold that ball from coming out. There. Of course, this one is making me out to be a liar. Oh, you son of a bitch. There it is. Ooh, that was close. Almost lost it. Okay, I got it. Got it. The trick was to not use this punch directly that way, but to lever it up a little bit and push the ball down very slightly while moving that shaft into place. All right, so let's see if the choke works. There. Works as it should. Didn't work at all before, by the way. Just sees solid, so at least that's better than it was. That's good. All right, so welcome to amateur hour. God damn it. I forgot to put these in. So these have got to come off. Son of a bitch. What a dumbass. All right, we're gonna start to re-rack these guys now that I've actually put all the parts back in there. I had to take carburetors 1 and 4 back off and get those vent tubes in there, which that was pretty stupid. Anyway, so get these guys mounted up and then we can put the accelerator pump parts back in and put the float balls back on. So the plunger's back in there. I'm just going to lay these down this way. The other thing that would be quite a bit different if these were going back on a bike is it would be all new fuel lines, and all the rubber hose connections between the carbs would all be getting replaced and all that kind of stuff, but that is not the case. So if I end up using these in the future, or anybody ends up using these in the future, they'd have to change these rubber hoses and stuff in between because they're still the old ones. So alright, so this is pretty much the last part. Putting the other racking bar on. Alright, so there we go. Everything is back together. Yes, the springs are looking like crap. Yes, the hoses all need to be replaced. But they're all back in one piece. And I'm very confident that you know, if these hoses were replaced, the bike would run just fine. Everything's clean as a whistle in there. A lot of new jets and emulsion tubes and needles and whatnot. So so from a functionality perspective, I couldn't put these on the bike just because these, you know, these hoses, these things here, are in really bad shape. A couple of them are cracking, so they're not gonna hold fuel. But everything else, and you know, similarly, like this main fuel inlet line here is pretty awful. The spring is rusty and whatnot, but you know, aside from that, everything works like it should. The choke works. There's half choke, full choke, which I've just seen that the last one of these needs to be tightened up. I took the carb off. There we go. Half choke, full choke. So that's going to be the end of the video for today. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a few things. I definitely did. There was definitely things in there that I'd never seen before in a set of carburetors. So, you know, they're not going to be a showpiece. They're not going back on a bike, which is why there was, you know, things that I didn't do. You know, like change all the hoses and all that kind of stuff. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.